All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having yourselves a fantastic start to the AM. A couple things to talk about here today, right? Happy Wednesday. I feel like a Wednesday to me for some reason. But yeah, it's besides the point. So a few things here on the economic calendar here this morning, right? We had PPI come out fine, retail sales come out fine, and then we've got a decent amount of Fed speak here again, right? This is the last week prior to the blackout. So very interesting. They're not stopping, right? So they're racking up their speaking fees, right? They're getting all their TV appearances in, and certainly they're just getting themselves out of the way prior to next week's Thanksgiving. I should mention this here today. I'll put it in the live or into the Discord and into the or on the website, I should say. I don't know why I was trying to find my train of thought there. But next week, right, markets are closed on Thursday for U.S. Thanksgiving. And then Friday historically is a very quiet day, so I will not be streaming on the Friday. And then the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving, historically not a very busy day either. So next week, the stream will be active Monday, Tuesday only. Wednesday, I'll be traveling and then working out of a different location for the next little bit. And then Monday, Tuesday, following week, right, stream will be normal schedule. Everything will be back to how it would be normally, but I will not be doing one-on-one calls on that Monday, Tuesdays. I'm still just going to be out of town, so it's not going to be set up, and honestly going to be traveling a little bit. So if you guys want any one-on-one calls, right, please get them booked for Monday, Tuesday next week if you haven't booked it already for this week. And if you need like an extra time slot or a different time period that isn't available, please let me know and I'll see if I can fit you in somewhere in between. But yeah, that's sort of the plan there for next week. So apologies for that. But yeah, we're around with the holidays, stuff like that. Yeah, happy to take a little bit of time off. So with that being said, right, let's start mapping things out here and figure out what we want to do. So good morning, Craig, Joel, Ruben, Rose, Kay, Brian, Jonathan, Steven, and Igor. Hope you guys are all having yourselves fantastic starts to the AM. And yeah, let's get after it here this morning. So SPY, right? Let's start things off here. What would we say this count is this AM? What's sort of the objective that we're looking for here? And I mean, what do we feel price-wise, right? Like we've had a pretty crazy bit of PA last couple of days. So what would be our narrative here? What would be sort of the story that we're looking for? And then let's kind of keep mapping it out from there. Yeah, spot on, Joel. How do you feel about the wicks of this candle? So are we super concerned though? So all things considered, right? How big is the wick in relation to the body? Hey, good morning, Joe. Yeah, so we'll like if we're to qualify this or to look as a candle, it probably looks a bit more like normal bullish, right, than least bullish. So for me, right, like it's a little bit maybe of profit taking, but it's not enough for me to be concerned or to be like super worried here. So we'll just call this a normal body bullish candle. For me, right, generally the reference is I don't want to see the top wick to be bigger than the body or bigger than the bottom wick. So if it's bigger than one or both of those, then I'm generally going to start pushing it towards the least, right? But if it's not, or if the body's bigger than the wick, I'm generally, or the bottom wick on a bullish candle is bigger than the top wick, I'm generally going to call that like bullish control. Okay, so on a 3 for 3 here to the upside, what are we looking for here? What types of setups we're looking for? Nate, I would agree with you that 452 probably appears to be the better spot for us, right? And then that's that point of contact there on that trend line. So I think you're spot on. So if 452 here is the breakout target, what's maybe the more realistic scenario here that we'd look for today? And it's what does it remind you guys of? If it's like Like, if we were to go back and pretend that this was what day of the week again from this week, what day does this look more like than the other? Not a very good question. Does this price action or does this pre-market setup remind you more of yesterday or more of Monday? And yeah, can you guys give me the why? So Nate and Joel, I'd love to know both of your guys' whys. Okay. So what I would say, Nate, is that it reminds me a little bit more of Monday's price action, right? Because we have strong bullish PA and we're looking for dip buys inside that high volume range. Kind of the same thing that we're looking for here, a very similar type of setup that we're looking for here, or maybe we can get that same sort of bit of PA. Where yesterday, right, because we had that 2 out of 3 with volume, we didn't have as much flexibility to play breakouts or pullbacks. So today, right, we have a little bit more flexibility. That reminds me more of Monday's price action than yesterday's or the Monday pre-market look. And then we think we've got space here up towards about that 458 area. So I'm going to run up towards that $1 along the way. And that 458 is just that last point of contact on that trend line. Okay, QQQ. How do we feel here? What's the name? What's the style? I don't know. How do we feel? Yeah, very similar. Right? Hey, Brian. Very similar narrative, right? Well, it's nice, Brian, that you answered both the question and said hello at the same time. Very efficient use. So we're going to call this, right, normal body bullish. I probably call this candle just a little bit stronger than what we saw in the SPY. So normal body bullish plus, I mean, it's negligible, so I'm not going to get too crazy about that, but a little bit smaller of a wick, right? So 3 out of 3 here to the upside. What's the narrative we look for on 3 out of 3s? We're looking for either breakouts or what? Right? Find support inside yesterday's range. Spot on, guys. Yeah, spot on. And then we can visualize dip buys as like a Bollinger Band reversal, right? As a bounce off of VWAP, if you want to call it that, as a bounce off of previous day's high. So there's a lot of flexibility here on how you can actually see that setup get visualized. But all I'm looking for here, right, is weakness or bears to fail prior to bears failing. And then when bears show that they're not able to reclaim control, it's easy for bulls to step back in and push price action higher. And then, yeah, 3 for 3 here. VIX 14 spot 16. So I've got no reason to be bearish here. And look at the way the market's behaving, right? You're not getting paid being short here. And I think it's just going to drain mental capital trying to want to front run this reversing, right? So I don't think that's going to be worth my energy. So I'd rather play this to the upside, keep trying to find my base hits, and then see when we get a personality change if we can take advantage of that PA. All right, Apple, how do we feel about this? A little bit unique, right? First red candle we've seen here. What would we call this as a red candle count? Yeah, it's a 2 out of 3 here to the downside, right? Red candle, increasing volume, gap up. So it's the gap up that's telling us a different story to sort of the red price action that we've seen there. Now, this isn't a very high conviction candle, right? Still making a higher high. It's a least bearish candle. So we're not seeing a ton of actual bearish momentum. But at the very least, we need to now invalidate yesterday's volume standard for us to get a breakout up and over. So compared to, say, a QQQ or a SPY, the standard of which we need to apply volume for us to get a, say, confirmation here, it's going to be significantly more difficult, right? So we have a 2 out of 3 here, or a weak 2 out of 3, right, with volume. And so we need to invalidate those remaining bits of bearish price action and turn them into bullish PA. So first bit of invalidation, right, is when we make new highs above that 188, right? That's going to make it a, right, it's going to remove the sort of red candle element of it, right, where we're going to wipe out those highs. And then we need to get it on bigger volume standard to get this story to be a little bit more consistent. So that's really what I'm cheering for here as much as possible. And if I can get that narrative, that 189 breakout very much still seems in play. So I just need to see a bigger vol standard. Right? And then no real pullback scenario here. Right? So we just need to invalidate some of that weak bearish price action, wipe out those highs, build out on mega momentum, and then we should have a lot of follow through to the upside. Okay. Tesla, how do we feel about this? What's the name? What's the style? Might have a chance to finish filling this gap. Bounced off that trend line pretty much perfectly yesterday. Yeah, 3 out of 3. Probably our best looking 3 out of 3 as well, right, so far. Tesla swing trade, right, or Tesla, we'll call it long-term position, right, up 20 bucks a share now. That's not too bad. So time to maybe start trimming that, right, if you jumped in on that play. So what do we say? Like, do we feel like we've got trending price action here? Do we maybe have a catalyst here for trending price action on a technical level? And if so, what does that mean we're looking for? Yeah, so either a dip buy here, right, off of those highs, right? Or give me a breakout, finish filling that gap, and maybe push up back towards sort of that 250 area. But this is awesome momentum, right? Way bigger volume than we've seen in any of that selling pressure inside that pattern. So a nice little breakout here, textbook breakout. If we can get a, continuation story, I think this is a path of least resistance that we could definitely fall in love with. Now, just levels wise here, right? 240 is going to be the starting point. But if this thing opens up above 240, we'll start this thing at 241, 242, whatever it needs to be. And we can basically push this up. Yeah, buck along the way towards 242. And then we can fill this out towards like 255-ish, right? $2 along the way pretty quick. So either support, right? Then we're looking for 240. And then from there, we go $2 along the way, right? So 244, 246, 248, 250, 252, 254. We'll go 255. That's a ton of space up here. So yeah, that makes sense to me. And then yeah, downside, not really anything in play here. So trying to see basically if I can get continuation of this wedge breakout and how much more momentum I can continue finding here just to push price action higher. But I think this is a good starting point on Tesla. And I would say that, like, if I can get good index cooperation, it certainly seems like a nice leader we could fall in love with. Okay, Microsoft. What does this remind you guys of? Almost like feels like it's mirroring it exactly. Yeah, it looks so much like Apple, right? So what would we say we need to see here? If we are getting two names here, both of the, like, they're the two biggest names in the index, right? Oh. So what would we like to see from Microsoft and Apple today? Yeah, so besides the breakout, right? Like, yes, we want to see it to do that. It's the same setup trigger here. No problems, right? But think bigger picture. So if we want to think like cooperation wise, or now that we have a bit of information that we're seeing a lot of narratives, what would we want to see the market continue to give us here during today's session? Yeah, so I would need to see basically Apple and Microsoft to be telling me the consistent story like throughout the day, right? And giving me index cooperation as well. So if these start to decouple and start to give me a different narrative, like one's going up, one's going down, and like SPY's going up, QQQ's going down, or SPY and QQQ are going up, and Apple and Microsoft are going down, I'm probably gonna be uninterested in trading that because I'm being told that then a very inconsistent story from the indexes and the index's two largest names. So I need to see that cooperation here and just make sure that those stories continue to remain synced up if I'm going to trust any of those stories. So if I don't get that consistency across the board, I'm being told a chop day here, and I need to watch out for those signs as early as possible. Okay, Amazon. How do we feel about this? Yeah, so we call this like a week 3 out of 3, right? So least bullish plus increasing volume, not quite outlier. So a nice 3 for 3 here to the upside, or sorry, week 3 for 3 to the upside. So a week 3 for 3, kind of need to see maybe a little bit of conviction step in here, right? I'm not sure if I'm too motivated to look for anything. That'd be 148, I reckon, at this point. So I need to see that breakout. Maybe I could find a pullback off of like 145-ish. But if I got a pullback setup, I think I've got easier ones to find support off of, right? 145 could very easily flush, fill that gap, and then reverse. So I would say, like, if I'm going to be judging the quality of these names or the probability of me wanting to trade this, Amazon's like the name where if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and all my friends have seen someone, like, this is the name that I'm going to try to trade, right? So I'm not sure like that I'm going to be very interested in Amazon unless something dramatically changes here. So I would say this is like more or less probably the one to watch versus one to trade. Although it is a 3 for 3, it's just the weakest looking one. So I'd rather filter out and focus on the higher quality setups or the A plus trades. And I just think that this pre-market is a little bit less convincing than maybe some of the other narratives that we've seen here so far. We go kind of like up towards like 157, but we need to see, yeah, like just outlier volume to step in here and just convince me, right, that this is the play. So like this just has to be the most convincing. I'm not convinced here yet, so it has the most work for me to be to fall back in love, we'll say. Right? Like family's got to be rich or something. All right. Meta, how do we feel about this? Increasing volume there by the skin of its teeth. What's the count? Maybe what would we like to see? A bit of a double top breakout as well, potentially. Yeah, spot on, Joel. 3 out of 3. How do we feel about this volume standard compared to everything we've looked at here? Yeah, you're on the right page here, Nate, but let's just slow down here for a sec. We'll get to the levels in a second. How do we feel about this, like from a volume perspective? So compared to all the names that we've seen here so far, something look unique about Meta? Yeah, right. So it's probably like the weakest name, even though it's a weakest on the volume standard, right? So even though we have a technical 3 for 3, maybe this isn't that high volume support shelf that we think we have in SPY, right? Or the high vol support shelf that we think we have in Tesla. So I would be less motivated to find dip buys inside this name, right? And then this is similar narrative here to that Amazon, where if we do look for those dip buys, there's maybe a little bit of a vacuum underneath it that could pull price action lower and kind of like trap you in, right? So under that 333.44 area, I'm a bit more evidence of seeing sellers step in and control price action versus bulls inside that zone consistently. So I'd rather see that high volume outlier breakout shelf get established over that, say, 340 area like Nate is describing there. So I think that would be my priority, and I'd rather filter out the dip buy setup here, even though this is a 3 for 3, just because that volume is just so much weaker compared to everything else that we've seen here so far today. So I just want to ask myself, right, why is it weak? Why is it showing me signs of a lack of momentum, or why isn't it giving me that oomph that I'm looking for? And so I'd want to see that get established to alleviate some of those anxieties. We can call this a normal body bullish-ish, right? It's a little bit of a, I'd say like the wick and the body of the candle are give or take about the same size. We'll call it normal-ish, bullish, right? Increasing, but not outlier. Man, every other word's a typo. And then gap up. So we got 3 for 3 here to the upside, but we want to see a bit more information step back in and reclaim control for us, right? So weakest vol of all our names. Right, so biggest in the last 2 weeks. And then we're looking for a breakout over 340 here. Man. So I had this is a little bit dumb, but about this time last year, right, had a little bit of a Facebook position, bought it, it was about $100 and sold it when it was like 150, 155-ish. Man, do I feel dumb about that. That was like a generational buy. Oh man. Same with AMD. We had AMD in like the 60s, in like that same period. Oh, what could have been. Anyway, so above 340. Oh yeah, Nvidia. I didn't play to the upside, or I didn't buy any dips on. Who sold at like 150, Joe? I think we got shelf up, like a shelf up towards that 350 area. So we'll just fill that in like $2 along the way. Oof, I mean, that's an awesome win. Like, who wouldn't take 50% almost, right? But, oh my gosh, like, now it being almost 350, like, oh, what did I do? could have had the Lambo. I don't think I would have bought that, but you trick yourself with the dopamine. Yeah. Every now and then, some stuff comes out here, Craig. Not as bad anymore. I've been back in Canada, right, for a long enough time, so I do sound Canadian again. But when I first moved back, I had quite the accent, and like half the words that I would say were whatever UK jargon or, yeah, whatever, just some stuff here and there, and that was always like a little weird slang. So that's disappeared. But if you ever hear me talking about Chelsea or catch me at a match and I'm singing a song, I'll probably have an accent and you'll think I'm some crazy fraud. So, yeah, it's funny how that works. And then if you ask me to do an accent these days, I couldn't do one. Like, I couldn't do a British accent to save my life. So, the human brain's a very confusing thing. So yeah, generally across the board here, guys, right? Feels like we're in a bit of a squeeze mode here, and we're looking for just clean continuations of those narratives. So the more volume we can see on these breakouts, the higher conviction we can get on these higher highs, the basically more participants we can see, the more, I don't know, the easier it'll be to kind of get that A+ look, right? I don't need to try to chase this thing higher. I'd still rather look and buy weak pullbacks right inside this PA and just create good risk reward ratios for myself. Just fundamentally feels really dumb chasing extended higher highs. So I'd always rather try to buy low, right, and sell high, even if that's like in a relative version. So let's see what kind of PA we can kind of find ourselves here this morning. Make sure that we're not getting trapped with too much like, Fed speak or anything along those lines. Right, that starts at 10. So we'll know pretty early on if we have a busy morning here. We'll see a good volume standard here. And then we can get a good pullback. We get a high volume kind of breakout. We'll be able to take advantage of those pretty quickly with a primary focus on something like this Tesla. And then we'll kind of build out our kind of ideas from there. So a few minutes here at the market open today. Finished the prep just a little bit earlier than usual. So I'm going to go make myself a quick cup of coffee, spend a minute or two here sort of visualizing a successful trading day. And then I'll do a quick little rundown as the session is starting. Yeah, so great question, Clark. Generally what I'm trying to do here is if I have a setup or I have a name, like for example, this Tesla, when I close my eyes or when I'm trying to visualize this idea, I'm trying to look at what does a confirmation look like on a breakout above 240? And then can I visualize where I'd set my stop loss? Can I see myself setting my Fibonacci's and watching price pull back into that 236 Fib area? And then once I'm in that trade, how do I manage it, right? Can I visualize myself setting a hard stop loss? Can I visualize myself scaling out at 1R, 2R, 3R, right? Or level to level? Like I just want to basically, in my head, I want to see myself execute my plan perfectly to the upside, right? So see myself absolutely dominate that trade. And then unfortunately, if things go well or don't go well, right? I want to visualize cutting that trade without any emotional attachment. So, visualizing what that may be, like a wick through that I don't like, or what does a bad reaction at entry feel like, right? Trying to visualize, okay, when I enter, I should be green right away, or I should see a pretty immediate bounce. So if I now see it continuing to drift lower and lower, right? If I visualize what that price action looks like, maybe I can cut it earlier when I see it than in real time. So I'm trying to more identify some of those pain points and just see myself doing it and applying the specifics to that, right? So visualizing the specific candle shape, right? Trying to see the full body bullish, like absolutely just explode through that level, and seeing really aggressive volume standards. And just the more of those kind of things that I can stack up, it's almost like I can then have like a premonition of how the market's going to behave during the day. So that's market open here, right? Let's see where that momentum steps in. We're looking for basically either weak failures or like weak rejections here at this open, and then really strong narratives to step in and kind of create trending price action. So weak pullbacks, right? Weak PA, weak opens, no big deal. So what we would like to see here, ideally, right, is a high conviction breakout, high conviction volume bars, right? Consistent stories, right? Apple and Microsoft, we want to be showing us signs of strength, right? Showing us momentum. So if we get weak pullbacks, right, and this is, I think weak pullbacks are the best case scenario for us, to be honest. Like that's, I think, the most convincing trade or the easiest trade for us to take advantage of. What are our expectations for those time frames? Again, I think a lot of what being a trader is making good proactive decisions, right? So having good expectations to knowing what baselines are. I think that's why backtesting is such a valuable tool, right? If you're going to be backtesting or you're going to be looking back to identify like your pattern, you're doing that so you have an idea of, okay, this is how aggressively it moves, this is how often it wins, this is what a failure looks like, this is what a win looks like, and it creates realistic expectations over what you should expect, right? So if you know your pattern works 60% of the time, you're an idiot if you're expecting it to now work 100% of the time, right? So we're trying to create realistic expectations for ourselves, and same thing with certain setup triggers. So if we know that we're looking for a reversal signal, and generally our best reversals happen at XYZ, maybe we're going to be a little bit concerned if we get an A+ reversal signal at 9:35, right? Or 9:42 or whatever the time is. So we always want to make sure, right, that as we're identifying market conditions or we're finding the price action that we want to take advantage of, we're also setting ourselves up for a realistic expectation of what should be happening here. So I don't like trading outlier events or outlier behaviors because those are a little bit unpredictable, right? So I end up gambling more than I end up trading in those sort of circumstances. So those realistic expectations, or knowing like that kill zone or the specifics of my kill zone, allows me to not feel the pressure, I think, to a certain extent, right? When PA is moving in a certain direction. So again, right, good pre-market prep, good planning, having that sort of proactive process in place is what's ultimately going to make you more successful here within that context. And so far, not the most impressive volume standards on the names that we're looking for, right? Like a Microsoft might get there on the increasing volume, but we need to get bigger volume than the selling volume we saw there yesterday, right? On that week 2 out of 3. I'm not sure if we're going to get there, which would maybe push me more towards like a Tesla or a index level. So we're slowly getting the right there. Yeah, and that's spot on, Greg. Yeah, so if we don't now get, I mean, we don't have any setups here active yet, but I would like to see that big volume, especially on those Apples and Microsofts, to step in. And so, yeah, I would need to see hopefully the next one or next 2 to 3 candles, right? And the 5, 10, 15, 30, one of those starts giving me the narrative I need. But because like that opening 5 min, I mean, Apple a little bit better, but still not bigger. So if that is the case, right, then just the indexes, right? The ones that are 3 for 3s are going to be the easier trades for us to focus on, right? Because the standard that we need to get over on a volume perspective is easier. So something like a Tesla then would become a bit more of a priority versus like an Apple, because we don't need to overcome or need to sustain a greater standard. We need to just go increasing, right? We need to see just a little oomph there, not like a big oomph. So now we're going to wait for the 10 min, right? Tesla's the best look here, but we need to get confirmation. No confirmation here yet. Microsoft getting close. Might have a chance on the 10 min volume to get there about halfway, right? So we should have a chance. Apple, that one maybe not as much, right? Like the volume here on the 5, not as interesting. So Microsoft can get there on the volume, could be in play, but would like to see cooperation from Apple, and then going to continue watching, seeing where else things step up. So watching. Okay, so no 373, right? We're targeting 375 here, so we can start to box in this trade. Now we're not looking to enter this yet because we don't have confirmation, but we want to just contextualize this here so far, right? So this is our low of our confirmation candle, or this, if this does hold right in 3 minutes, this will be our confirmation candle, and we know we're targeting about that 375. So we got a pretty big range here, opening up in about the middle of the range. We would need to see a decent pullback before this is tradable. Tesla needs to hold here, but again, could be in play. So Tesla should be able to get 100 or 1,000 shares here, right? That's pretty good sizing. The max entry of 500 at a time. So this would be a trade we just kind of scale into a little bit. Oh, nice. They upped the limit here, leverage limit. Beautiful. So what we could watch here on Tesla is if this 5 min candle goes increasing volume, right, then that could be interesting here. Otherwise, we can look at this on the 10. The 5 min would be preferred because then I need less of a pullback, right, to justify this. Microsoft might not be holding here, so we'll need to watch that. So we'll keep watching. Tesla might be the little bit more likely at this point. Robisz piasek. Okay. Okay, so Tesla might give me increasing volume here, right? Close. So where's our target on Tesla now? Yeah, spot on, Igor, right? So broken through 241, so we're looking for a move towards 242. So maybe we're not going to get quite the trigger here. Well, we might just fail on risk reward requirements, right? Be hard to get a pullback potentially. So that would be how we box in this trade. Right? And so you need to pull back towards 239.50-ish. $9.39. So you get time here. Okay, Microsoft with quite the rejection. Fuck. Right? That's quite the rejection. And what we want to see here, right, is Tesla to pull back into our entry zone prior to making a higher high. So just with that Microsoft rejection, I want to be a little bit cautious here, right? I don't need to be hyper aggressive yet. Right, but maybe that's a little bit of a warning sign there. A little bit potentially, right? I would say that looks like a pretty significant failure on the 10. I mean, this 15 would have to bounce back in an aggressive way, but I would say that that's like the narrative that we talked about here this morning of we want to see indexes and Apple and Microsoft cooperate. Otherwise, we get chopped, right? That would be maybe more what I'm now fearful of, right? That kind of rejection, while we're still seeing a bit of a grind up on some of those other names, ultimately just leads to a situation where the market gets confused and gets stuck. Like I would say that's my biggest concern. It removes the opportunity to get a consistent narrative across the board. Yeah, I think Microsoft, right, just made a higher high as well, and then possible fake out. So no entry here, right? So what we're going to do here, right, is pass on the burden of confirmation, and we're going to switch to the 15-minute time frame. Then see if we can reset this up. But that Microsoft reaction was pretty gross to that 373. Now Apple's right starting to pull back here a little bit. So we're seeing signs of contagion. So I don't want to rush this very aggressively. Not with, I mean, I don't want to say blindly no, Concord. I don't want to say blindly no, because I will for sure. But today I felt like I had such consistent narratives across the board that I was seeing like that the path of least resistance or price action would behave if everything was telling me the same story. So as long as those stories remain consistent here today, then I thought I had an easy narrative. So I would say today specifically, I don't want to fight the indexes because I needed that cooperation. But there will be times where I'll be happy to play a little bit of a contrary narrative. But generally, the point of trading these highly correlated names is that I should just be looking to play the strongest version of the same story. And if I can do that, then I'm usually going to do pretty well. So when those stories start to get inconsistent and like all over the place, then it's not that I start to feel like I get chop versus follow through. Like Microsoft and Apple, they make up like 10% of QQQ and SPY, right? Give or take. I don't know the exact off the top of my head. So, you know, kind of how they behave, the markets behave in general. I'm always just a little bit weary if they're fucking around, for lack of a better term. The market usually is too. Yeah. And you can find the specific weightings. I probably should have this memorized, but yeah, Microsoft 7.36, Apple 7.34. That's like 14% right there. It's pretty aggressive. Okay, so I'd say maybe on this Tesla now we can look towards 244. Right, we touched that 242, so let's see. Right, but this needs to be our stop loss, right? Our stop loss on this 15 needs to be that 236.50, so this is not our entry yet, right? Need a much deeper pullback. Need a pullback towards like 238.22, right? At which point your max position sizing here should be about half size, right? So that should be about 500 shares, right? If you're trading on the 100K account, if you have a 200K account, right, that should be about 1,000 shares. Be your max limit here on Tesla anyway. So we need to see a very aggressive pullback into that zone to be interested. Yeah, so we have confirmation here already, John, right? Confirmation is this high volume breakout candle that held our level on increasing outlier volume, right? Bigger than the selling pressure. So now what we're looking for, right, is just to justify this trade from like a expected value decision. So if I were to take this trade 1,000 times, I just want to make sure that at the end of those 1,000 times, I have an expectation of being profitable. So on my, or in my trading, right, I have a setup requirement, right? So setup for us, right, is a breakout through that 241. Confirmation, right, is a break and hold of that setup on increasing outlier volume. And then execution is identifying the risk reward requirements that justify taking this trade. So what we're looking for here for myself, at least personally, I like to look for a risk reward that gives me about 1 to 3, which means that I need to be correct on about 30% of my trades to be very profitable. And so that gives me a very significant margin for error if my win rate's in the 50 to 70% range. So that just makes it easy for me to survive mistakes, and it forces me to lose small when I do. So yeah, that for me would be a good opportunity. So we have a good setup here. We have a good confirmation. We're just looking to make sure that those execution requirements now actually give us a positive expectation of being profitable on this trade. Does that make sense? So at this moment, right, as long as we haven't made a higher high, I have a order hanging out here at 238.20, and it's half size, or it's 500 shares, right? So, and then if I get an entry there, sweet, right? If it ticks, I'll get a fill. If it doesn't, no worries. But everything's set up here already, right? So I know where my stop loss needs to be. I know what my position sizing needs to be, and I know what my profit target needs to be. I mean, I don't really feel like I noticed or saw the resistance at 243. I don't think it really gets in the way. It seems like it's kind of there at that 234. But yeah, if you want to then go 233, you think that's the resistance, then just change your target, right? You're looking for then an entry about an extra 40 cents lower or so. So if you think that there's resistance at 243, right, map out your fib from 243 down towards your stop loss location, and then that'll spit out your appropriate entry zone. Perfect, Randall. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that Microsoft's a little bit of contagion there, right? Just a little bit. But Tesla and Apple have held up pretty well, all things considered. So if we kind of see a bit of a reversal, right? A green to red to green market, that's a bit of a tongue twister. But if we start to see that a little bit, maybe there's an opportunity. So I'm still watching this Tesla. I am still interested here, but I do want to be a little bit careful to make sure I'm not getting rug pulled. About a buck away here. I would say that maybe I'm not getting the index cooperation that I want to see. I'm keeping an eye on the SPY here on my left. Currently, I'm going to cancel my hanging order in the short term while I see what looks to be an increasing selling pressure on the SPY 5 min. Yeah, in this case, WC, right, because your stop loss would need to be about $2, your max position size would only be about 1,000 shares anyway. So you would do 2 orders of 500 to get to your $1,000 limit. But I've canceled my hanging order here. I'm not interested in taking this trade at the moment. So I'm not seeing the index cooperation that I think I need. So I'd rather be a little bit more patient here, right, and make sure that I can actually get the reaction that I want. This does not feel like the reaction that I want within context of this crack on markets, right? So if Microsoft gave me that really aggressive rejection, and our thesis here this morning was that Apple and Microsoft are going to lead the charge, and then now I'm seeing indexes break down and crack lower after Microsoft has, kind of feel like I made the right analysis, right? Or I had the right view of the market. So yeah, just think about it, WC, always that after stop loss, you want to lose less than 1% of your total account, right? And the less that you can lose, the better. So from that 238.30 area down towards that 236.40, your stop loss is about $1.84, right? So round it up towards $2, we'll say, right? You might deal with some slippage, you might deal with whatever. So if you're going there with 2,500 shares and you're dealing with that and you get stopped out, you're going to lose about 2%. So you need to cut down that size and play within those restrictions. So if we look here, right, earlier in the week, Tesla's leverage, max leverage was 3-to-1. And so that's now changed, right, as we've gone further away from its earnings. And so I imagine those limits will be updated here at some point too. But they're dynamically playing around with these all the time, right? And so they're setting themselves to protect themselves from max liquidity or sorry, from max volatility. And so it is a bit of a pain in the ass, but we get so much follow through on a Tesla that even getting 1,000 shares in, you can get $10 of follow through here, no problem. You can get $5 of follow through here, no problem. And so it's worth it, the extra volatility. It kind of justifies being able to play the smaller position sizing. But if I were to trade like, I don't know, an Apple and I can only buy like 100 shares, or like an Nvidia, right? You can only buy like 100 shares. Fuck, like what's the point, right? So you're not really getting the sizing you want to even manage that volatility well enough. So we'll keep playing, but that's something I'm working on here a little bit in the background, back testing some names so that we could get a like a bigger list of names that give us like 10,000, right? That we can trade, where we could trade fuck you sizing, for lack of a better term, and yeah, like be really aggressive when the opportunity strikes. We're maybe finding a little bit of dip buyer support here now on the index level, but just right into 10 a.m. feels a little bit nervy. Business inventories. Maybe we can get like a fake out entry on business inventories. That could be interesting. Ooh. Huh. I mean, in hindsight, a perfect entry. Be up $2 a share, right? So even if you only got your 1,000 shares off, right? Who would complain about $2,000? But no, I mean, this is a trade that in hindsight looks obvious, but when the markets were doing what they were doing on that volume standard, good opportunity to remain patient. VIX hasn't really moved here today still either, right? 14.15. We open up the day at 14.18. So, yeah, this still feels like an overreaction sell, and we could look for dip buys off of. Not enough volume on Amazon here off of these lows. No, so your max limit right now, WC, right, on Tesla from Think Markets is restricted to 1,000 shares, right? So that's your max limit here at the moment. You would not be able to exceed that number. Right? So you always you have this limit number on every position. Now, not every trade, not every position is 1,000, right? Like Apple's 5,000. Well, it is, right? So we want to make sure that we're sizing our trades from a risk management perspective so that we're not risking more than 1% of our account. But also, right, the platform will manage or prevent you from over leveraging and over risking during volatility events. So they have the right to restrict how many positions you can buy, help basically protect their downside. That's what they're doing in that context. 1,000 shares on Tesla, still plenty of action for us. So that's why it's kind of worth still dealing with, because look at how quickly you can get $3 worth of follow through, right, in a 3K trade. So in this situation, right, getting 1,000 shares, no problem, gives you enough space. But that's your limiting factor here, right? So from a technical perspective, you don't want to be losing more than 1% of your account after stop loss. And you need to be making proactive decisions with your risk management to ensure that doesn't happen. I don't know how often they specifically change, Craig. But like during Tesla's earnings week, the leverage was 3-1. And then now it's 5-1. So, or 6-1, sorry, right? It's greater than Apple's. So I do think that these are just dynamic, but I don't get, I don't know when they get updated. Yeah, the 236 level have been perfect. But when the market was doing what it was doing, I'm not trying to catch a falling knife there. Still not convinced we found the bottom. No, so the limits are always actively changing, Craig, always. But like I said, guys, right? Like that's kind of one thing I'm working on over Thanksgiving is back testing names that allow us to not have those sizing restrictions, right? So there are a few names where there's so much liquidity and there's so much like consistency in the price action that you don't have to have any concerns. Like if you want to trade SPX, for example. All right, and you just go indexes here. All right, you can trade 100 lots, which means that your P&L is moving $100 for every penny. If that's not enough juice for your squeeze, and you're kind of screwing yourself over, right? And the max leverage that you can get there is like 600-1 or 200-1, okay? So you're really not running out of a buying opportunity there. So there are a ton of flexibility that you got 1,500 products that you can play around with. So a little bit of my responsibility over the next week or so is just to make sure that we have a few names. Yeah, 100%, Craig. Yeah. They're dynamic, right? And like as they're getting used to the extra liquidity and as they're getting used to seeing more and more volume step in from surge, right, those limits are going to be changing too. So really the point is they're just trying to make sure that they don't get like screw themselves over, right? They're the liquidity providers. They want to be matching buyers and sellers. They got to make sure that they can get the orders filled. Yeah, you could trade SPX, you could trade gold, you could trade currencies, right? And you're gonna get like you can get fuck you sizing. I keep cursing today. I'm not sure what's going on with me. But you could get, yeah, like crazy big sizing. So really like what like I keep saying, right? My thing I'm gonna be working over the next week or so here at this point now. We'll call it next 10 days until I'm in some sunshine. Is right, just back testing the efficiency of my techniques on those names that give us that sizing, right? So we can be flexible, but like the concepts of risk management or concepts of whatever is not going to change. Not too much, Joel. I try not to add like too many cooks to the kitchen. Oh, it just means that for like your position sizing is so big that for every point that the SPX moves, right, your P&L is moving $100, right? So you can get that much exposure. Like if you're buying 2,500 shares of Tesla, right, that or 1,000 shares of Tesla, that means your P&L is moving $10 for every penny that Tesla moves. You get 10x the exposure you can get on Tesla, right? 10x the P&L exposure there. Do what you want to do. So if you buy 100 shares, right, you're moving $1 for every P&L. For every dollar that the stock moves, right? If you're buying 1,000 shares, moving $10. Buying 10,000 shares, right, moving $100. So yeah, like transitioning away from trading SPY and just translating that to SPX, just making sure that that works smoothly. And then same thing with QQQ, and all of a sudden, bye-bye sizing restrictions, right? You're never going to feel constrained by those. And then, yeah, I mean, find like a silver or a gold you can trade. Like a Meta is really good for that reason. Microsoft's really good for that reason. Yeah, just refining our watch list to make sure that it's worth our time. Problems there. But it just takes a lot of effort, right? Like, it's very time intensive to do those back tests appropriately and to build up the confidence. So it takes a little bit of time, unfortunately. Man, I'm annoyed with Tesla. you're a dick. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. Each one has its own personality and its own little quirks and stuff like that. And you know, at least like names like in Amazon, for example, right? Been trading it for like 200. Yeah, Russell would be a good one. Like adding more of the indexes. Like you have very few restrictions on the sizing there. Like Russell 2000, you can get that $100 a penny, right? Move, or $100 a point move. So adding all the indexes could be in play. Yeah, NDX, same thing. Energy names, right? Playing like crude and stuff like that. So there's a lot of size. Like there's so much potential here, guys. But I really don't think we're ever going to run out of opportunities. Fuck, you can buy 20 Bitcoins at a time if you want. That's a lot. Yeah, we're seeing that pullback here, right? But take a look at the daily. This is just doji, right? So if we keep talking about if Microsoft and Apple were kind of decoupling from the index, we anticipate indecision. I feel like we've gotten exactly that narrative here so far, right? Very tight range, not a lot of that's not a lot of range on the index level, right? All things considered. So very similar price action to what we got on that Monday, but without getting that same deep pullback that we got, right? So like kind of a day of compression or a day of it kind of catching its breath. But we didn't get that pullback opportunity here today. Maybe in hindsight, right? Should have pulled the trigger on that Tesla because that satisfied every single criteria. But like, I'm not really gonna beat myself up about that. Like I'm the reason why I walked away makes a lot of sense to me based on sort of what my plan was pre-market. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But not too disappointed about this. Yeah, so they do have starts to daily candles. So we're gonna go like a Bitcoin, BTC USD. Do a couple things here, right? So they do have a daily time frame or daily candles, right? Because they do have one that resets. But what you could do here is just set it up with like the 4 hour. You'd probably break it down that way. But yeah, like those little details, right? Those are the stuff that like I need to kind of figure out, to be honest, and just like spend 2 or 3 days just like translating things. I don't really like to do those kind of things on the fly because I'm just gonna miss a detail. Oh, doing this on like I'm Canadian, right? So US Thanksgiving, not particularly a big deal for me. So like when everyone's, I mean, as I got like probably my football on in the background, and I got like a I'll probably have a drink realistically in my hands, a cocktail in my hands, like just sitting down, looking at the markets, no pressure, just kind of like in the exploratory mode, if that makes sense. Like that's where you start to get those ideas and you start to be able to test theses out and play around with stuff. Oh yeah, I mean the footballs, I mean we're gonna have a good time, but I just don't have like family pressure. Any family pressure to do anything, so I'm literally yeah, getting an Airbnb, turning off my phone, avoiding people, and yeah, doing some focused work. I mean, yeah, of course, I'm a real football fan, Igor, but it's international break now, so I'm going through withdrawal symptoms. Oh, Jonathan, that's plenty, man. That's plenty. Dude, hit 10%. If you hit, even if you hit 5%, let's start your evaluation, right? So what I would say is just send me a number that you want. And when you get that, boom, let's start. Igor, who's your team? Okay, so who can tell me why this Tesla 5-min was not confirmation of a rebreakout? Good volume profile. Green candle. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, didn't break and hold that high a day, right? So if we had that volume profile above that 242, break and hold, increasing volume, boom, that's showtime, right? But that's a failure. And then if we look at this on the 10 min, right, that wasn't an increasing volume standard. So now maybe we can get this on the 15, but 20 seconds away, we're probably not going to get that to show back in or to step back in. So that indecision narrative, probably feeling like the most likely outcome here now at this point. And we avoided traps. I think all things considered here, avoided traps pretty well so far today. Pain in the ass. Fuck, guys, I want more trades too. But I can't do this. I can't just like throw money at a wall here and see what sticks. Like it's too tilting. So it's got to be systematic. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be repeatable. That has to be the obsession, right? And it's tough sometimes. But it has to be the obsession. One sec, guys. Just got something at my door. Give me a second here. Yeah, I'll see if this high can hold here on the SPY. But again, we get a green to red to green reversal today, right? So we need to see a breakout above high of day on bigger volume than any of the bearish volume we've seen. It's possible. This is not bad volume for the time of day. But look at Apple, right? Pushing towards lows. Look at Microsoft, right? Kind of looks like it's maybe bear flagging at lows. But it doesn't feel very high conviction, right? Anyone else feel otherwise? I'm not sure. Netflix fading. I would very much, I think, as like a general theme, is I would like to have a name that I can rely on, that I could trade when tech isn't hot. I feel like if I were to say like to evaluate my trading as like, you know, a mirror in a car, that would be my blind spot. Oh, I mean, this would be a good spot for a possible reversal candle, right? Uh, yeah, we'll see. Just PSP stands for possible. I'm trying to think of where I had it written down. The heck did I write it? Okay, so again, right, watch for a high day breakout on big ball. I mean, I'm sure there's probably a way of doing that, Joel. It's not something I've looked into yet specifically, or like breaking down the components. But that would be definitely a good way of getting that exposure. I just don't, I honestly haven't looked into the restrictions or if it's even available. So yeah, don't know. You can trade 1,000. I'm not sure if that would be the sizing I'd quite want. Yeah, so 1,000 probably isn't the limit. I want like the 10,000s, right? Where there is no restriction whatsoever. Because I could trade like, where is it? Like the JP Morgan if I'm going to trade financials, right, for the same amount. Or I could trade an Exxon, right, with the 1,000 shares or 2,500 shares, right? So there's a lot. Like just finding that right balance or like the right name to basically represent each of those sectors. then I think there would be a lot of potential there. So kind of what you're saying is spot on, right? Those are kind of the sectors we want represented. But then we just want to make sure that we have the best version to represent that. Yeah, exactly. Something along those lines. So Joe L. I mean, this kind of seems like this should have been your pullback here. Breakout, that was your pullback potentially. I would do it the other way around, Joel, right? So you wouldn't want to do an XLC because XLC only gets you 1,000 shares, right? Google, I can buy 1,000 shares too. So it doesn't like give me a unique advantage there. So it's got to be finding the right name to represent that sector that doesn't have the restrictions. But yeah, that 9:50, 10 a.m., that was your breakout trade right there. Yeah. So I get what you're saying. So we'll find a representative or whatever the right ratio is. But it's got to be worth it, right? It's got to be worth it. Google doesn't give me an extra advantage there size-wise, right? So we have a lot of tech exposure. We have a lot of names that can give us 1,000 shares. So that doesn't have any extra value. So it's got to be something that's like worth the effort. Because I could just use Tesla as an XLC, right? For the same sort of restrictions. Okay, so SPY making highs. Q is probably not too far behind, but Tesla cannot give me the volume profile I want. Maybe on this next 10-minute candle can give me that close and then push up towards that 244. We're getting a little bit more cooperation from the indexes and Microsoft and Apple, but I need to see this candle close with some decent confirmation. There's going to be a lot of other like semiconductor names that we could play as well. So yeah, just finding that ratio, like that's just going to take a little bit of work. But yeah, I don't really feel like stressed or restrained, right, by the position size or anything along those lines. So I would not worry about that too much. And I want you guys to think about, like, I know the value of prop accounts, they have a ton of extra leverage, right? But if you want to reclaim like your control as a trader, or sort of your freedom as a trader, then the point, right, is to use your funded accounts to create your personal accounts, right? So grow your account with someone else's money. Once you have a portfolio that you're happy with, right, now you have a ton of flexibility. You can trade ideas in one name, right, or in one. You can execute trades in your SMH in another, right, and you have that flexibility. But the best thing about it, right, these funded accounts, is to then grow that or to get access to that capital, you have to create that proof of concept for yourself, right? And you can create that proof of concept without it costing you any money. So take advantage of that, right? Play around with that. Be cool to experiment and refine your edge to play within those rules. Because then when you do and you translate that to your own personal account, it's going to work really well. Like, these rules are set up for a reason, because they reward the traders that kick ass and they protect themselves from the traders that don't. So you can learn a lot based on basically how they structure their evaluations, right? They're setting them up or structure them to take advantage of their greediest customers. And so if you can basically use that against the prop firms, you crush it, right? You dominate, because that's the edge that they've set up, right? Or that they've created for traders. So use those proof of concepts, right? Learn how to play within those rules, and you're going to see fantastic improvements to your own personal portfolios, where then you can feel like you can trade the liquidity names that you don't want, or you can trade over earnings, or you can do a few other things that maybe someone else wouldn't want you to do. But create that proof of concept first, right? Take this free money essentially, and then use that to build out whatever the next step you want to be in your career. Like for myself, yeah, I've got a funded account, right? And I do trade that, and I had no problems with that. But there'll be times, right, where I can get a lot more sizing trading on my interactive brokers, or I'll add to my position on interactive brokers because I can get that trade that I need. Not a good enough confirmation candle there, Steven, right? We need to see a break, close, and hold. Didn't really get that on the 15 on increasing volume. So we need to see a rehold of high of day on a better standard. 5 min's not good enough for me. Needed it to be bigger than any of the bearish volume. It's not really there. So yeah, like on my personal account, guys, right? Like I'm adding to my long-term portfolio consistently. I'm doing covered calls. I'm running cash secured puts. Like I'm compounding the money that I'm generating inside my funded account with then sort of less frustrating trades, right? Damn. Yeah, so that's a lot of position sizing you get on Airbnb. That's crazy. Yeah, 20,000. Wow. So just finding those names, right? Like what's a what's it called? Yeah, you could do 2 separate accounts. If you, there's one thing that you can do, right? If you get funded on, say, the 250K level or the 100K level or whatever it is, or whatever you think it should be, they offer you like a chance to do a double or nothing. So if you then want to audition and level up to the 250 or 500K account or the $1 million account, you can try to scale up that way if you want. But if you get funded and then buy another evaluation, you can essentially copy your trades from one account onto the other and get bigger position sizing. Right? So it'll be 1,000 shares in one account. Right? But you can copy trade where you have 10 accounts. Right? If you want. What social trader? Not sure what that is. I'm not sure specifically. I don't think you can copy trade someone else's. Like, you know how there's like, you see it on Instagram all the time, but of like these ads, like, oh, we guarantee, we'll pass your evaluation in 10 days or whatever. There's a few like accounts that say they have like things along those lines. And what they do in those accounts is they buy 2 evaluations and they basically go long one, short the other. So they don't allow those kind of like arbitrage trades. But they don't have any issues copying, like creating your own copy signal. I just don't know about using someone else's as a copy signal. I'd have to look into that. Yeah, so copying your trades to more accounts, yeah, no problem. I don't know if specifically Social Trader works, but yeah, I know you can copy your trades and link accounts to basically maximize. But you can do that through MT5, right? You do that through MT5, not through Surge, right? So in MT5, you can connect multiple accounts, you can link them up, not through the Think Markets website. But yeah, Joe, good find on Airbnb. $130 too. So it's kind of the right sweet spot, right? Where 1% moves, I mean, on 5,000 shares, you ain't laughing about that, right? So we'll add this in here to be watched, but that's great exposure. And like when you do get funded, like spreading out your accounts is a really good move, right? Like it gives you, because your biggest risk as a trader once you're funded is losing access to an account. So if you have 5 or 6 or 10 accounts and they're all maybe, I don't know, 100K or 250K, like losing one's not going to be life-changing, right? And so it gives you flexibility, gives you whatever, and then you can size down your trades across the board, right? De-risk, but still have incredible exposure. So instead of like, you know, going for 10% only in one account, you're going for like 5% across 10 accounts. And so now you're making less per account, but stacked up together, your risk is way lower and your payout's way bigger. Yeah, seriously, that's why, like, I know it's probably frustrating sometimes, but I literally need 2 good trades a month to make a fuck ton of money, right? So, like, the pressure for me to have to make very many decisions is not there. You could do across Surge, you could use different prop firms, you could do whatever. Joel, but the connector, right, is your account login info. It's not your connection through Surge. It's the login info that they provide you to use through MT5 or their platform. So you need to connect all those logins. So like really the reality very often, right, in trading is that over the course of the month, I'll take, let's say 15 trades, right? 10 of those will be wins. 5 of those will be losses. But maybe 7 of those wins and 3 of those losses are going to be kind of like negligible, right? They're going to be like a 1R win or a scratch win and kind of like a scratch loss. And then 2 of my wins are going to be like 10R. 1 of my losses will be like 1.5R. And then I'll have like a win that'll be like 3R. And then that there is enough to have a very successful P&L month. So that's why it's such a risk management game, because I never know which one of those, say 15 trades over the course of a month, it's going to be that 10R win. I don't know which one of them is going to be that shakeout that leads to nothing. And I certainly don't know which one is going to be sort of that loss, right? On that SPY trade, we got about 60 cents worth of follow through. It's about a 3R win, risking about 2R win, I would say. Really just all about not losing big while you wait for your big wins to happen. Well, the reason why we didn't, Craig, the reason we didn't get an entry here on Tesla on this pullback is because just as it was making those lower lows, we were breaking down on the index level. So we just weren't getting that index cooperation because we were making really fast, aggressive flushes through, right, as Tesla was pulling into that original entry price location. So we were looking for around 238.20-ish as an entry price, but indexes were flushing and making lower lows, so I decided to pull my offer. Yeah, but Joel, you made 350 bucks, right? Because the sizing you had on that trade wasn't very sufficient. So if you traded that with SPX instead, and you had like 25 bucks a point, all of a sudden, right, that trade is making you 1,500 bucks. Very nice, Nate. You banking on that play? Right, so that's why your position sizing is so important, right? Why we talk about why we obsess over our position sizing details so much, because then these small wins can be big wins. Right, so 2R, you get 2R your average risk. That's pretty damn good. What was the sizing issue, Jonathan? What happened? Nate, what's your plan to scale out here on your remaining on Tesla? Like, you're in great shape here, up $2 a share. So what's your scale out plan? How are you managing this position? Are you protecting your entry at this point? Very nice. About 40 cents away. How much of your position is left? How many shares did you buy? One order or two? Oh, dude, epic entry. Very nice, man. So $1,000, give or take, on that trade. Don't think you're really complaining about your position sizing at that point, right? Probably could have been a little bit bigger on your position because your stop loss here is pretty small. 242, right? So you're risking about 50 cents there. So yeah, you could have been 1,000 shares, but I love the execution. That's fantastic, dude. Well, yeah, Jonathan, yeah, right. Think about it from the lot, right? One lot equals $1 per point. So if you're having 10 lots, right? 10 lots equals $10 per point. You actually, I don't, might be right on the 100 per point. Yeah, because 10 lots buys you 100 SPX. Oh, let's see. Let's set this at 4,500. So no, 10. Yeah, 100 per point. You're correct because it's 100 e-minis. Yeah, you're correct. So if you want a 7-point risk, right, for a $1,000 loss, boom, you got the ratio to work backwards to find that. And so on the sim, right, you'd be able to trade up to 20 lots on the 100K account. That would hit your 200 to 1 leverage. So that's plenty of exposure, right? So you find, yeah, so I'd probably round that down, right? Maybe make it like 10-point risk and just say, okay, think about it that way. So yeah, $100 a point, $10 a penny. There we go. So just to show you how absurd the market is, just that trade I entered just to play around with you, Jonathan. $98 on the demo account. So sometimes like when you don't try, that's when things feel the easiest. Nate, awesome work here, man. So you're gonna hit that 245. I don't know how many you have left. You said 100 left. You try to sell maybe 50 at 245 and see how much volume you can keep getting towards maybe like that 246 area, 250 zone, or push your stop loss to like your last take profit and just see like how much more volume you can get past that area. But you call yourself a great runner, dude. So I'm looking forward to reading that rundown here later. Yeah, there's that 245. Let's go. So Nate, what I really love about this, right? What I think is fantastic is you take the principles that we've talked about, break out over high day on increasing volume. You like that look, you like that candle, you played the risk reward ratio towards your kind of the ratio that you're looking for, and you absolutely crushed it on that trade. But yeah, do market order, of course, right? Look at the spread that you're getting. You're getting a 40-point spread, right? Or 40-cent spread, sorry, right? So of course you're going to get a bad fill. You got to wait till the spread crosses over your price, or you got to use pending orders to get out where you want. We need to break and hold on pretty big vol here, Concord. For myself, like I still think the breakout's above 189. Everything else in between, not as enthusiastic. Well, if you go here, Jonathan, right, into the Think Markets demo, there's a thing here you can call spread. And you can see what the current spread is for all of these names. So I don't really know how else like I can show you an example of that. Besides just waiting for this number, like the spread to cross and hit my price that I want. If you then want to get out, right, at a specific price, you set your take profit in here. So let's say I'm just going to mark it in order into this just for an example here. Okay, right, so I'm in. Started off. No, that's not true. You just got to make that setting, right? You got to make this or bring this up inside your market watch, right? You can add columns here to give you the information that you're looking for. So don't use that as an excuse, right? And then once I'm in, if I want to market order out of this, that modify or delete, right? And then you just fill in your take profit, right? You could do a pending order if you wanted, sell limit, right? Yada, yada, yada. So you can play around with these tools and figure it out, but it is there. Made $200 playing example SPX trades on the demo. Sometimes it feels like you can't do that if you tried, right? And then you don't try and it's like, oh, okay, money, money. Okay, so there's that Apple breakout, Concord, you were talking about. So what you'd like to see here, right, is see this thing break and hold on that increasing volume standard. You have a good pace here, right? So it should get to that outlier. My only concern is I hate the time of day it's happening. It's a little bit late. Fuck, Joel. Like, the setup here is a 189 breakout, man. The breakout through high of day. It's the exact plan we have written down here. There was no setup, Joel, on SPX. Like I was saying, I was just doing exploratory trades to show you guys the sizing. Details, man, details. All right, when I bring up this demo account here for you guys to see, it's so that you can see, right? It's for illustrative purposes only. I make that very clear every time, right? So don't like be like half-baked listening to it, because that's how you miss important details, right? Nice, Jonathan. Good, good. So what do we need to see on Apple, right, to consider this a A+ setup? What's the standard? Easy to tell for us on the daily. What's the standard? So we had a 2 out of 3, right? Or a weak 2 out of 3 to the downside. So what do we need to see happen to invalidate that 2 out of 3? Yeah, we need bigger volume than any of the bearish volume that we saw there yesterday. And we haven't established that standard, right? We didn't get bigger volume at the open. So it's very unlikely that we're going to see that standard now step in an hour and a half into the session, right? The most likely period that that's going to happen is now kind of towards market close. But it doesn't mean that this thing can't grind higher here. It absolutely could. Just means that it's not going to be an A plus setup for me, where it could give me a confirmation on increasing volume here, but it's not going to give me the increasing volume standard that I thought I needed pre-market. So it's a, for me, not going to be an A plus setup. So I'm going to be happy to walk away. Again, you're getting a good confirmation. You're getting a good candle look. So you could trade this, but it's not my standard. I don't have that standard back tested, right? So got to walk away. Nate, hopefully you still got a few runners here in this Tesla. Absolute beast, man. Great trade. Nice work, Nate. Really well done, man. So yeah, next time, think about your position sizing a little bit more. You could be more aggressive within that trade. But, I love the confidence to have your own conviction, right? Execute an idea that we talk about all the time. And you're making money when I'm sitting on hands. So I literally cannot complain at all, dude. Well done. Exactly what I like to see. Whew, $5 a share, dude. I'm jealous. Right? So you have that sizing on that trade, right? That's the trade that makes your month, right? Or one of the trades there that makes your month. You need 2 of those. Crush it. You need like maybe 3 or 4 of those to pass your evaluation. So awesome work, Nate. Really looking forward to reading that rundown. But well done, sir. Yeah, seriously impressive, Nate. I personally don't, Jonathan. I use just pending orders or buy limit orders or sell limit orders and wait for a pullback to enter in. I don't use stop limit. I use buy limit or sell limit. Hey guys, any questions here? Any questions about anything here this morning? Very similar narrative to what we got on that Monday, but without getting that reversal candle off of those lows. So couldn't quite get the entry that I wanted or PA that I needed to have played this move higher. Congratulations to a few of you who did play that Tesla. That's an epic trade. There's two entries on this potentially, right? One at that 238.20 and then another one exactly where Nate did. So well done for identifying correct price action and for finding the trend and taking advantage of it, right? Tesla was our strongest name here pre-market. So very well done focusing on that momentum here today. I mean, I got no complaints here so far this week, guys, right? 1 for 1, playing that base hit and not rushing or forcing any trades or draining my mental capital thinking, oh, this can't go forever. So happy with how things are going. Have no real complaints. Happy with the progress I'm seeing from you all. We're going to keep stacking up those wins, keep controlling the variables we can't control, and find kind of our sweet spot of how we want to execute on a day-to-day basis. So in the meantime, right, if you have any questions or anything you want to go over, please feel free to hit me up and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, final call for questions here. Otherwise, going to take off pretty soon. Sounds good, Igor. Have yourself a great day, man. Looking forward to your end of day recap. You too, Joel. Good work today, man. You have a good day too, Ruben. Hey, Rose. As our resident Australian here, you're probably one of the only people that has access to the TT platform. What do you think about it? Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, the MT5 web does the job, honestly. And if you're doing all your charting in a different platform, you only need something for execution. Okay. Shit. So final call for questions here. Final call for questions. So the standard Concord, right? The standard that I need to see here for Apple. No, guys, fire away your questions. This is what they're there for, right? The thing that I need to see here on this Apple is I need to see a bullish volume that is greater than any of the bearish volume I saw there yesterday, right? So I have bearish volume in control and bearish price action in control. So far this morning, we've invalidated that bearish price action, but we haven't invalidated that bearish volume. So before I'm willing to take a trade to the upside on Apple, I need a volume bar that's greater than this opening 5 min there on Tuesday, or a volume bar that's, we go back, right, greater than the close I saw there on Tuesday. So I need to see a bit of momentum stepping in that direction that clearly invalidates that standard. And on the 10 min, right, I can see I'm like head and shoulders lower than that volume standard on the 10. Right, on the 5 min, I didn't get close to being bigger than the opening 5 min either. So I just haven't gotten enough volume confirmation to suggest that bulls have fully reclaimed control. And the expectation of that volume now stepping in at 11:10 just isn't there. The likelihood of that volume stepping in is either at market open tomorrow or now at market close here again today. So if we could then see that volume step in 2:30, 3:30, a little bit closer towards that time period, that's where you'd expect now that to step in. So it's not that we haven't gotten a breakout through that level. We have an active setup here on this Apple, but it's just not going to give me the volume I need to actually get the appropriate confirmation. So for me, it's not satisfying those requirements. And so why I'd be uninterested in taking this trade. I just don't have enough information here to imply or suggest that bulls have fully stepped back in and can push this price action higher. So it's already moved up. We'll call it a percent here this morning. Without that then extra volume confirmation or that volume momentum, I have no confidence it's going to move towards that 190 as easily as possible. And then that changes, right? The second I see a daily close that happens over this level. So today, if we get a new count, we can change it XYZ. Or if today, right, I get a bigger volume standard than what I saw yesterday. And so that didn't happen at market open, which is why there was less interest in it. Does that make sense? So do you want to repeat it back to me? I'm going to ask you a question, okay? So if you were to play a breakout or needed to see a confirmation above that 189, what standard would you expect to see on that candle? So it's a really good question. So I'm very happy to go over it. Oh, no problems whatsoever, man. So what do you think? Any ideas? Yeah, so we want to see the break and retest. You're spot on, right? But now we just want to add that volume confirmation, right? So that extra layer there to avoid that head fake. So what's the standard of volume that you'd like to see to know that your idea is correct? Because your technique after your setup is correct, we just need to add that one extra volume filter to help you avoid those head fakes. So break and retest is what you want to see prior to execution, right? What's the break standard that you want to see to then look for that break and retest? That makes sense? Yeah, and just we want to get bigger than anything yesterday. So you have, we'll call it 3/4 of the information you need. You just got to apply that volume, basic volume filter. And that volume filter is basically the difference between your A+ and non-A+ setups. So trades without volume or without the volume standard that you think you need, avoidable. Trades with volume should be the ones you look for exactly that reaction you just described. So the point, right, generally of the 3-for-3 system is that it tells us what information we need to now step in that needs to be greater than previous day, right? So SPY, yesterday was a 3-for-3, right? Had mega volume. We had a ton of momentum. So I needed less of a standard here to go for a move to the upside, right? I only needed increasing volume relative to previous candle. Whereas on Apple, right, yesterday had increasing bearish volume. So I need to wipe out that smoke, give me some nice signs higher, and then I can run with some conviction. Yeah, maybe Concord, what I would say for maybe something we can focus on here in your daily check-ins, send me your volume confirmations or like point out to me what you think is your volume confirmation. And we can kind of just build out from there. Ah, no worries at all, man. No worries at all. So you have to make sure the spread crosses, correct? Right? And depends on what side, right? So if you're looking to go long, right, you got to make sure Hitting the bid. If you're looking to go short, right, you got to make sure you're hitting the ask. Oh, likely the name that you were trading, Antonin, had a massive spread. So let's say if I were to go to on the stink markets here, right? You see how on Apple, if I were to bring up this window, it's got like a 130 or 189.38, 189.46. You need the spread to cross to hit that number. Otherwise, you're not going to get a fill, right? So if you're waiting, you're trying to buy at 140, you're not waiting for this mark or this number on the left to be 140. You're waiting for this number to be 140 on the right. You need the spread to cross, right? So you could get under 140, but not where you're actually seeing buyers get executed. So when you're trading those like low liquidity names that you potentially look at, that's what happens, right? You're not able to execute because there's no one on the other side of that ticker. Yeah, Antonin, what was the name you were looking at, man? So let's start with some details. Is that just plug? Okay, when did you try to get a fill? What was the price? What time? And what was your order process? Like what I would say about this name, right, is it's a $4.50 stock with an 8-cent spread. Right? So if you have an 8-cent spread, the fact that it dropped at 2 cents, of course you're not getting a fill, right? You never crossed the spread. Your spread was 8 cents different. Right? So you don't need the right? You don't need the bid to hit your number. You need the ask to hit your number. And your ask would have been at that context $4.54, right? $4.54. So it doesn't pull back your entry zone. So you need to be accountable for that spread, right? An 8-cent spread on a $4 stock should be something that you're not interested in trading. Right? Unless you have like an expectation for a big move. Right? But you need to move 8 cents, right? Or 2% essentially for it to pay you out. That's tough. Dude, it's a $4 stock. Like you'd want it to be a couple cents, right? Think about how much it's moving. Like my spread on Apple is 8 cents. And Apple's 60 times more expensive. Yeah, think about the spread, right? Like that's the reason why you didn't get filled. And that spread's too big for a name that size. 10 cents, no big deal. It's reasonable, but not on a $4 stock. Yeah, inside your whatever execution platform, bring up the spread settings and just be aware of those. That's why you didn't get filled, and that should be pretty self-explainable. All right, guys. Any final questions here? Any final questions? Your numbers might be wrong there, Joel, because I breakout 461.70, confirm at 455.50. I don't know how that works. But yeah, this candle, right? High vol breakout through previous high a day on bigger volume standard than anything you saw there yesterday. Confirmation, correct. Well, you want to look for a pullback, right? That's justifying your risk reward, not like a specific point of contact, right? So you got to identify what your target is and then work backwards to find your risk reward ratio. Towards high of day, buying at midline on the Bollinger Band, right? You're about risking $6. You're getting maybe a little bit better there, but you got to be careful, right? Make sure you're getting the appropriate risk reward to justify that trade. I still don't know if you get it. Risking about 360, right, to make about 570. I don't think that's good enough. Like the entry shouldn't be based on a point. It should be based on a risk reward ratio, be based on being able to justify it within that context. Well, you have to answer that question for yourself, right? Like, what's your profit target here? Where's your stop loss location? What's the like? Where's your plan, right? Like, I can't answer your question without that information, and you shouldn't be interested in this trade until you know those targets as well, right? So, yes, good candle, fine, but what's the plan behind that, right? Where's your profit target? Where's your how are you going to box in this trade? How are you going to figure out those techniques so that you can actually answer that question? I'm guessing what your profit target is, right? So that gives me not enough confidence to be able to tell you if this is a good idea or not. You have to be able to fill in that context yourself so you can get to that point. Right? So if this is your breakout confirmation, right, through 457.50, you're probably targeting a move towards right on this breakout. I don't know, maybe towards 460. So your trade at the time would have looked like this, right? So here's your confirmation. Your stop loss is here. Your profit target needs to be 460. And then you're working backwards, right? And you're looking for an entry around that 450, 417. And then when you look throughout the rest of the day, if price action pulls back into that area, you never really get close to justifying that trade. So what you're doing here, right, is you're looking back through your charts, you're seeing a confirmation candle and then working backwards to see if you can justify a trade instead of playing the setup how it would have looked like in the moment, right? So what you're doing there, going back on the daily charts, is you're actually cheating yourself of learning that progress because you're not looking at this of the setup, confirmation, execution, like the formula, right? You're going confirmation, setup, execution. So it's got to be what's my setup trigger, what's my profit target, right? What's my confirmation, what's my stop loss location, and then work backwards to find your entry. It can't be find a good candle and then find a reason to trade, because that's going to rush you into decisions you don't want to make. Well, it's not that you have to do it real time, dude, but it's you have to have a plan, right? So you can't be throwing shit at a wall here and seeing what sticks, because now you're hindsight justifying levels to try to find a bit of price action, right? The way that you find this trade is you do that prep, you fill out those levels, right? You mark out your chart the same way that we spend 50 minutes or 40 minutes every single morning going over, and then you can answer those questions, right? So it's a lack of preparation that's like robbing you of the information that you need. So it's not that you have to do it in real time. It's not that you have to do it later, but without being prepared, you're not giving yourself a chance to answer those questions. So you're cheating yourself of your progress. Right? So we have to look at everything within the context of our plan, right? If we don't have a plan for the trade, a confirmation candle is meaningless and all it does is confuse you. Right? So we do things in a process and in a formula every single time so that we don't have those slip ups, right? So we don't have those like self-fulfilling confusion right? That's essentially what you're doing. So you gotta plan it, you gotta map out your levels, and then contextualize your risk reward towards those areas. And then it can't be like this Netflix now, right? Because this move has already happened. Like, this is not a confirmation candle at this point, right? So pulling back, looking off of this bounce is not a setup that tells you the same story or that coincides with this opening candle, right? So you're just confusing yourself by skipping steps. All right, guys, if no final questions, then I'm going to call it there. Extra 40 minutes of final call. So I guess plenty of time. If you didn't get your question answered, it's on you. So if you guys have anything else you want to go over at the end of market day, please feel free to send me an email. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, have yourselves a fantastic rest of the session, and we'll be back at it again here tomorrow. But remember, guys, right? Take control of the variables you can control. Your spread, your plan, your risk management, how you scale out, the discipline, the structure. These are all things that you guys can take care of and build up those good habits. And when you don't, then you're just cheating yourself of progress, and you just end up confusing yourself of what to do. So focus on those variables and don't look for things to be like just handed to you, right? Find those answers yourselves, figure this shit out. It's basics, and then everything will scale out from there. So take control of those variables. Take control of taking that action, and that's going to compound into really positive decisions in your account. So focus on those things, and everything else will fall into place. And in the meantime, have yourselves all a fantastic rest of the afternoon, and we'll be back at it again here tomorrow for that next pre-market prep, and we'll hopefully find ourselves a nice winning trade then. Peace.